The text message glowed on Brianna Thompson's cracked phone screen. Please don't be mad, but I set you up on a blind date. Table 12. He's gorgeous. You're welcome. Allison. Brianna's heart sank as she stood in her worn sneakers outside Lumiere, one of Manhattan's most expensive restaurants, the kind of place where a single appetizer cost more than her weekly grocery budget. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, she could see him, the man at table 12. Dark hair swept back perfectly, a jaw that could cut glass, and a presence that made everyone in the room seem to orbit around him. This had to be a joke, a cruel, elaborate joke. Her phone buzzed again. Go inside. I promise he's real and he's expecting you. But Brianna wasn't stupid. She was a single mother working double shifts at a downtown diner, wearing her only decent dress, a simple black number she'd owned for 6 years. Men who looked like that didn't date women like her. They didn't even notice women like her. She should leave. Turn around, go home to Faith, forget this ever happened. Instead, her feet carried her toward the entrance, pulled by something she couldn't name. Curiosity, maybe, or the dangerous flutter of hope she thought she'd killed years ago. Brianna's hands trembled slightly as the hostess led her through the maze of white tablecloths and crystal stemware. She'd never felt more out of place in her life. The other diners wore clothes that probably cost more than her monthly rent, their laughter refined and effortless. She was acutely aware of every step, every breath. Table 12 materialized before her like a scene from a movie she'd never been invited to watch. The man looked up, and Brianna's breath caught. His eyes were dark, intense, framed by features so perfectly proportioned they seemed almost unfair. But it was his expression that stopped her. Not the polite smile she'd expected, but genuine surprise, maybe even confusion. Brianna Thompson? His voice was deep, accented slightly, with an edge of authority that suggested he was used to people listening when he spoke. Yes. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. And you are? Tae-Jun Kang. He stood, revealing a tall, lean frame, encased in a suit that definitely cost more than her car. He pulled out her chair with practiced grace. Please sit. She sat, feeling like she was sinking into quicksand. Up close she could see the details Allison's cryptic text hadn't prepared her for. The small scar above his left eyebrow, the way his jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, the subtle tattoo peeking from his collar, Korean characters, vertical along the side of his neck. I have to admit, Tae-Jun said, his eyes never leaving hers, I wasn't expecting you either. The words hit like ice water. What do you mean? He gestured vaguely, and she noticed how his colleagues at nearby tables watched them with barely concealed interest. My assistant, Mrs. Park, arranged this. She said it was a business dinner with a potential investor. Understanding crashed over Brianna like a wave. My best friend told me. She closed her eyes, humiliation burning through her chest. This is a setup. We're both victims of a setup. It appears so. His expression remained unreadable, but something flickered in his eyes. Amusement, curiosity. She couldn't tell. Brianna pushed back her chair, the legs scraping loudly against the marble floor. Several heads turned. I'm sorry for wasting your time, Mr. Kang. I'll just... Wait. The single word stopped her mid-rise. Not a command exactly, but close. You're already here. We're both here. The reservation is made. He paused, and the corner of his mouth lifted almost imperceptibly. Unless you have somewhere more important to be. She thought of her empty apartment, the microwave dinner waiting, another night of budgeting and worry. Faith was at Allison's for a sleepover, the same Allison who'd orchestrated this disaster. I can't afford this menu, Brianna said bluntly, sitting back down with her chin lifted. She'd learned long ago that dignity meant being honest about her circumstances, not pretending to be something she wasn't. I can. Tae-Jun's response was immediate, matter of fact. He signaled a waiter with the barest gesture. Consider it compensation for being deceived. The waiter appeared instantly, as if summoned by magic. Tae-Jun ordered in fluid French that made Brianna's high school Spanish feel inadequate. She caught words. Filet, truffle, champagne, each one probably costing a week's tips. So, Tae-Jun said when the waiter departed, leaning back in his chair with an ease that spoke of complete comfort in spaces like this. Tell me about yourself, Brianna Thompson. What do you do? She could have lied. Should have lied. But something in his direct gaze made evasion feel impossible. I'm a waitress at Eddie's Diner on 42nd Street. If he was surprised or disappointed, his expression didn't show it. How long? 6 years. She met his eyes steadily. I have an 8-year-old daughter, Faith. Her father's not in the picture. I work doubles most days, sometimes triples during the holidays. That sounds exhausting. It is. She accepted the water glass the waiter set before her, grateful for something to do with her hands. But Faith needs stability, a good school, a future. That takes money I don't have yet. Yet? Tae-jun repeated the word thoughtfully. You're optimistic. I'm practical. Brianna sipped her water, buying time to study him. Everything about Tae-jun Kang screamed power and wealth, from his custom suit to the way staff materialized at his slightest gesture. But there was something else, a guardedness, a sense that he was constantly calculating. What about you? What do you do? I run a business. His answer was smooth, practiced. Import-export primarily. Korean goods, luxury items, some real estate. It was a lie, or at least not the full truth. Brianna had waited tables long enough to recognize when someone was editing their life story. She saw it in the way his colleagues watched him, in the subtle deference of the staff, in the way he held himself, like a man who expected danger around every corner. But she didn't challenge him. Everyone had their secrets. The food arrived in courses, each more elaborate than the last. Brianna tried to eat elegantly, hyper-aware of every movement. Tae-jun asked questions, about Faith, about her dreams, about the city she'd lived in her whole life. And strangely, impossibly, she found herself answering honestly. Faith wants to be a veterinarian, Brianna said, surprising herself with a genuine smile. She brings home every stray cat, every injured bird. Last month she tried to rescue a pigeon with a broken wing, kept it in a shoebox under her bed. Did it survive? Tae-jun's attention was completely focused on her, as if nothing else in the expensive restaurant existed. Flew away after 2 weeks. Faith cried, but I think she was happy too. She likes fixing broken things. Brianna paused, realizing how much she'd revealed. Sorry, I'm talking too much. No. Tae-jun's voice was soft, but firm. I asked because I want to know. There was a moment, brief but electric, where their eyes met and held. Brianna felt something shift in her chest, a dangerous flutter she had no business feeling for a man who lived in a completely different universe. Tae-jun's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his entire demeanor changed. The relaxed posture tightened, his jaw clenched. Something dangerous flashed across his face before he controlled it. I apologize, he said, standing abruptly. I need to handle something. Don't leave. Before she could respond, he strode toward the restaurant's private rooms, phone pressed to his ear. She caught fragments of rapid Korean, his tone sharp and commanding. Brianna sat alone at table 12, surrounded by half-finished plates that cost more than her monthly rent, wondering what the hell she'd gotten herself into. Minutes passed, then 10, then 15. She should leave. This was absurd. A setup, a joke, a moment out of time that would end the second she walked back into her real life. But Tae-jun had said, don't leave. And something in his voice, urgent, almost desperate, made her stay. When he returned, his expression was carefully neutral, but she noticed his hands clenched at his sides. I'm sorry, that was business? Brianna supplied. Yes. He sat down, but the ease was gone. Whatever had been building between them had fractured. I should take you home. Okay. She stood, gathering her coat. Thank you for dinner. It was unexpected. Tae-jun signaled for the check, paid in cash that he pulled from a money clip thick with hundreds. They walked to the entrance in silence, the air between them charged with unspoken words. A sleek black car waited outside. Not a taxi, but something private, expensive. A driver opened the door. Tae-jun gestured for her to enter. I can take the subway, Brianna protested. Please, let me do this properly. His eyes held hers. I'd like to see you again, Brianna, if you're willing. Her heart hammered. Why? I'm a waitress with a kid and student loans I'll never pay off. You're... She gestured at the car, the restaurant, him. You're this. You're honest, Tae-jun said simply. You're strong. You work 3 jobs for your daughter. You don't pretend to be something you're not. He stepped closer, and she caught his scent. Expensive cologne mixing with something darker, more dangerous. That's rare in my world. Your world, Brianna echoed. What world is that exactly? Tae-jun's expression shuttered. One day, perhaps I'll tell you, but not tonight. Before she could respond, he opened the car door. She slid inside the leather interior, feeling like Cinderella after midnight, except the prince had secrets carved into his bones. Tomorrow, Tae-jun said through the open door. Dinner again. Somewhere less formal. There's a Korean barbecue place in Koreatown. You choose the time. Brianna should have said no. Every rational part of her brain screamed to end this now before she got hurt, before Faith got attached, before she fell for a man who clearly lived in shadows. Instead, she heard herself say, 6:30, after I pick up Faith from school. Tae-jun's smile was brief but genuine. Bring her. The door closed. The car pulled away from the curb, carrying her back to Brooklyn, back to her real life. But as Brianna watched Manhattan's lights blur past the window, she couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted tonight, something irrevocable. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Sleep well, Brianna. Tomorrow, I want to meet the girl who rescues broken birds. She saved the number under a single name, Tae-jun, and despite every warning bell ringing in her mind, she smiled. The Korean barbecue restaurant was nothing like Lumiere. No crystal chandeliers or marble floors, just packed tables, sizzling grills, and the mouth-watering aroma of marinated meat and garlic. Brianna felt infinitely more comfortable here, even if her heart still raced at the thought of Tae-jun meeting Faith. Mama, you said we're meeting your friend. Faith tugged at Brianna's hand, her eyes wide with curiosity. She wore her favorite purple dress, the one with the unicorn on the front, her natural hair pulled into 2 puffs. Yes, baby. He's a new friend. Brianna smoothed Faith's hair nervously. How did you explain to an 8-year-old that you were introducing her to a man you'd met through an elaborate prank? A man who made your pulse skip for reasons you didn't want to examine too closely. Tae-jun was already there, seated at a corner booth. But this wasn't the impeccably suited businessman from Lumiere. He wore dark jeans and a simple black Henley, the sleeves pushed up to reveal surprisingly muscular forearms. His hair was less severe, falling slightly over his forehead. He looked younger, more accessible, until you noticed the way his eyes constantly scanned the room, cataloguing exits and threats with practiced efficiency. Brianna. He stood as they approached, and Brianna saw the exact moment his gaze landed on Faith. Something flickered across his face. Surprise, perhaps, or something more complicated. Tae-jun, this is my daughter, Faith. Faith, this is Mr. Kang. You can call me Tae-jun. He crouched down, bringing himself to Faith's eye level with a naturalness that surprised Brianna. Your mother told me you like to help animals. Faith's shyness evaporated instantly. I saved a pigeon. His name was Charlie. He couldn't fly, but then he could, and he left. But that's okay because he was happy. That sounds like very important work. Tae-jun's tone was serious, treating her words with the same gravity he'd given Brianna's at dinner. What's your favorite animal? Pandas. They're endangered, but people are helping them. Faith climbed into the booth without hesitation. Mama says I ask too many questions. Do you think I ask too many questions? A genuine smile crossed Tae-jun's face, the first Brianna had seen that reached his eyes. I think questions are how we learn. Ask as many as you want, they ordered. Tae-jun patiently explaining each dish to Faith, showing her how to use the grill, his movements careful and practiced. Brianna watched, unsure what to make of this version of him. The dangerous edge was still there, visible in the way he positioned himself to watch the door, in the deference the restaurant staff showed him. But with Faith, he was gentle. My daddy left before I was born, Faith announced suddenly, with the brutal honesty only children possessed. Mama says he wasn't ready to be a father, but that's okay, because we don't need him. Brianna's heart stopped. Faith, that's true, Tae-jun said quietly, his eyes meeting Brianna's over Faith's head. You don't need him. You have each other. Do you have kids? Faith continued, undeterred. No. Something painful flickered across Tae-jun's expression. There and gone so quickly, Brianna almost missed it. But I had a younger sister once. She liked animals too. Where is she now? The question hung in the air like smoke. Tae-jun's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. She's gone. A long time ago. Brianna wanted to reach across the table, to touch his hand, to somehow ease whatever wound Faith's innocent question had opened. Instead, she said, Faith, why don't you tell Tae-jun about your science project? The moment passed. Faith launched into an enthusiastic explanation of her volcano experiment, complete with dramatic hand gestures. Tae-jun listened with genuine attention, asking questions, laughing at her jokes. Midway through the meal, Tae-jun's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and Brianna saw the transformation again, the softness evaporating, replaced by cold calculation. Excuse me for one moment. He stood, pressing a button on his phone. Jae-sung, I'm busy. Unless Seoul is on fire, it can wait. He walked toward the back of the restaurant, but not before Brianna caught a few words in Korean, his tone sharp enough to cut. Is Tae-jun mad? Faith asked. Her fork paused midway to her mouth. He's just working, baby. Brianna squeezed her daughter's hand. Sometimes grown-ups have stressful jobs. What does he do? Good question. He runs a business. Import-export. Faith frowned. What's that? He brings things from Korea to America, and sometimes the other way around. It wasn't technically a lie, but Brianna was increasingly certain it wasn't the complete truth either. Tae-jun returned, his expression controlled but tight. I apologize. There's a situation I need to handle. Disappointment flooded through Brianna. Of course, this was temporary, a fantasy. Men like Tae-jun didn't really date single mothers from Brooklyn. They didn't. Would you both like to come with me? Tae-jun's question interrupted her spiral. I have a property in Midtown, a private office. Faith can watch a movie while we talk. It's not ideal, but... He hesitated, and Brianna saw something vulnerable beneath the polished exterior. I'd like to continue this evening, if you're willing. Every instinct screamed at Brianna to decline, to take Faith home, to end this before it became something she couldn't walk away from. But Faith was already nodding enthusiastically. Can we, Mama? Please? Brianna looked at Tae-jun, really looked at him, saw the hope carefully concealed beneath layers of control, saw the loneliness he wore like armor. Okay, she heard herself say, but just for a little while. The car that arrived was even more luxurious than the one from the previous night. Faith's eyes went wide as she climbed into the back seat, running her hands over the leather. This is like a movie, she bounced excitedly. Mama, look at all these buttons. Tae-jun smiled indulgently. Go ahead, try them. The ride to Midtown took 20 minutes. Tae-jun's office turned out to be the top floor of a glass tower, accessible by private elevator. The space was sleek, modern, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a breathtaking view of the Manhattan skyline, but it was the security that caught Brianna's attention. Cameras everywhere. A man in a suit, discreet but clearly armed, standing by the elevator. The bulletproof glass she recognized from her brother's tour in Afghanistan. What exactly do you import, Tae-jun? The question came out sharper than she intended. He met her gaze steadily. Korean luxury goods. Art. Sometimes my work requires significant security. Another not quite lie. Faith, there's a room with a television through there. Tae-jun pointed to a door. You can watch whatever you'd like. Mrs. Park set up some snacks. Faith looked to Brianna for permission. Brianna nodded, though her unease was growing. Once Faith disappeared into the room, Brianna turned to Tae-jun. I'm not stupid, she said quietly. I've lived in New York my whole life. I recognize security when I see it. The staff at the restaurant, they weren't just respectful, they were afraid. And the way you carry yourself, She took a breath. What aren't you telling me? Tae-jun was silent for a long moment. Then he walked to the window, his back to her, hands in his pockets. My family has been in the import business for 3 generations. We've built significant influence in certain circles. That influence requires protection. From who? From people who want what we have. From competitors. From those who don't understand that there are rules, codes of honor that must be maintained. He turned to face her. I'm not a good man, Brianna, not in the traditional sense, but I have my own code. I protect what's mine. I honor my agreements. I don't hurt innocents. What does that mean, not a good man? Her heart pounded, but she held her ground. It means I exist in gray areas. It means I make difficult decisions. It means that being close to me comes with risks. His eyes bore into hers. It means you should probably run. Take Faith and leave and never look back. But you don't want me to, Brianna said softly. It wasn't a question. No. The single word was raw, honest. I don't. Before she could respond, the door burst open. A man rushed in, Asian, mid-30s, wearing a suit similar to Tae-jun's. This had to be Jae-sung. Boss, we have a problem. Trevor Hayes' people just hit the warehouse on the waterfront. They took the shipment. Tae-jun's entire demeanor shifted. The vulnerable man who'd played with Faith vanished, replaced by someone cold and dangerous. How much? 5 million in product. And they left a message. Jae-sung glanced at Brianna nervously. Should we? She stays. Tae-jun's tone brooked no argument. What message? They know about your father's deal. They know he's planning to retire and name you as sole heir. Hayes wants to renegotiate the territory agreements. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Tae-jun's hand curled into a fist. We don't negotiate with thieves. I want every asset we have on this. Find Hayes, find the shipment, and make it clear that stealing from the Kang family has consequences. Brianna's blood ran cold. This wasn't import-export, this was something far more dangerous. Tae-jun, she said quietly, I need to take Faith home. He looked at her, and she saw the moment he registered what he'd revealed. Brianna. Now. Her voice was steady despite the fear coursing through her. We need to leave now. To his credit, Taejun didn't argue. He nodded once. Jae-sung, have the car brought around, and make sure they're escorted safely home. Is it wise to... Do it. Taejun's voice was steel. Brianna collected Faith, who protested leaving. In the elevator ride down, Faith chattered about the movie she'd started, oblivious to the tension crackling between the adults. At the car, Taejun caught Brianna's arm gently. I'm sorry, you shouldn't have seen that. What are you? Brianna whispered. Really? Taejun's eyes held hers. Someone trying very hard to be better than what he was raised to be. Someone who thought he'd given up on connections like this. He released her arm. But I understand if this is too much. I won't contact you again unless you want me to. Brianna should have said yes. Should have ended it cleanly. Should have protected Faith from whatever darkness surrounded Taejun Kang. Instead, she found herself asking, were you in on it? The setup? Did you know? Taejun's expression softened. No. Mrs. Park acted on her own. She thinks I'm lonely. She's not wrong. Are you dangerous? Yes. His honesty was brutal. But not to you. Never to you or Faith. Brianna climbed into the car, Faith already buckling herself in. Through the window, she looked at Taejun, this beautiful broken man who lived in shadows and somehow made her feel safer than she'd felt in years. I'll text you, she said. Taejun's smile was small, but genuine. I'll be waiting. The car pulled away. In the back seat, Faith snuggled against Brianna's side. I like Taejun, Mama. He's nice and sad, like the animals I help, out of the mouths of babes. Brianna's phone buzzed. A text from Taejun. Whatever you decide, thank you for tonight. Meeting Faith was a gift I didn't know I needed. She stared at the message for a long time before typing back, what if I'm not brave enough for your world? His response came quickly. What if I'm not good enough for yours? Brianna looked out at the city lights, feeling like she was standing at a crossroads. Behind her, safety and simplicity. Ahead, danger and possibility. She didn't know which path she'd choose. But she knew she couldn't walk away. Not yet. 3 days passed before Brianna texted Taejun. 3 days of working her shifts at Eddie's diner, of tucking Faith into bed, of lying awake, replaying that moment in his office when she'd seen who he really was, or at least glimpsed the edges of it. Coffee tomorrow morning, the place near my apartment. 9 a.m. Just you. His response was immediate. I'll be there. The cafe was a neighborhood institution, worn booths, bitter coffee, the smell of bacon grease and old linoleum. It was Brianna's territory, her world. She needed that advantage. Taejun arrived exactly at 9, somehow making even this grimy space look like a magazine spread. He wore dark jeans and a leather jacket, the tattoo on his neck visible above his collar. Every head in the cafe turned to watch him, but his eyes found only her. Thank you for meeting me. He slid into the booth across from her, folding his hands on the chipped formica table. Brianna had rehearsed this speech a dozen times, had practiced being firm, setting boundaries, protecting herself and Faith. Instead, she said, tell me the truth. All of it. Taejun was quiet for a long moment. Then he began to speak, his voice low enough that only she could hear. My family runs one of the largest Korean organized crime networks on the East Coast. We've operated for 40 years. Primarily gambling, protection, and high-end import-export that isn't always legal. My father built the empire. I was raised to inherit it. Brianna's coffee cup shook slightly in her hand. You're telling me you're in the Korean Mafia? The Jopok, yes. Taejun's expression was carefully neutral. I don't deal drugs. I don't traffic people. I don't hurt civilians. But I control territory. I manage operations that exist outside the law, and I've done things I'm not proud of to protect what's mine. The honesty was almost brutal. Brianna had expected denials, deflection, not this stark confession. Why are you telling me this? Because you asked. Because you deserve to know what you're walking into. His dark eyes never left hers. Because I won't lie to you, Brianna. Not about this. She took a shaky breath. You could go to prison. Yes. You have enemies, people who would hurt you. Many. And anyone close to you becomes a target. Potentially, yes. Taejun leaned forward slightly. Which is why I will understand if you walk away right now. I'll make sure you're never bothered again. You and Faith will be safe, I promise you that much. Brianna stared at him, this man who terrified and fascinated her in equal measure. She should run. Every logical part of her brain screamed it. What happened to your sister? The question came from somewhere deep inside her, the part that had seen pain flash across his face when Faith had asked about children. Taejun's jaw tightened. For a moment, she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, her name was Jiwon. She was 12 when she died, 17 years ago. How? A rival organization. They wanted to send my father a message. They didn't care that she was a child, that she had nothing to do with the business. His voice was flat, emotionless, but Brianna could see the grief carved into every line of his face. She was at a piano recital. They set off a bomb. She died instantly, along with 6 other people. Horror washed over Brianna. Oh my God. My father destroyed that organization. Every member, every asset, everything they'd built. It took him 3 years. Taejun's hands clenched on the table. But it didn't bring her back. And it didn't change the fact that she died because of what we are. Is that why you were so gentle with Faith? Faith reminds me of her, not in appearance but in spirit. That curiosity, that kindness. He finally looked away, staring at nothing. Jiwon wanted to be a teacher. She loved helping people learn, and she died before she had the chance to become anything. Brianna reached across the table, covering his clenched fist with her hand. I'm so sorry. Taejun looked at their joined hands as if he'd never seen such a thing before. You should be running from me, not comforting me. Probably. Brianna squeezed his hand. But I'm not very good at doing what I should do. Something shifted in his expression, hope mixed with disbelief. Brianna, I have conditions. She pulled her hand back, needing the distance to think clearly. If this is going to be anything, I need to know you'll keep Faith safe. That she'll never be exposed to danger because of you. I would die before I let anything happen to her. The words were fierce, absolute, or to you. I need to know that if things get too dangerous, you'll let us go. That you won't try to keep us close if it means putting us at risk. Pain flashed across his face. If that's what it takes to keep you safe. Yes, and I need honesty. Always. I can handle a lot, Taejun, but I can't handle lies. I'll never lie to you. He reached across the table, palm up, an offering. Those are fair terms. Do I get to make any of my own? Brianna hesitated, then placed her hand in his. His fingers closed around hers, warm and secure. What do you want? Give me a chance. A real chance. Let me show you that I can be more than what I was raised to be. His thumb traced gentle circles on her palm. Let me try to deserve you. The words hit her straight in the chest. No one had ever talked to her like this, like she was something precious, something worth fighting for. Okay, she whispered. One chance. Taejun's smile was slow, transforming his face from severe to breathtaking. That's all I need. They talked for another hour, Taejun explaining the boundaries of his world, the precautions he'd take, the security measures he'd implement. It should have scared her more. Maybe it did, buried beneath the strange sense of safety she felt in his presence. When they finally left the cafe, Taejun walked her back to her apartment building. At the entrance he stopped, not moving to follow her inside. I want to do this right, he said. Old-fashioned. Dates. Getting to know each other. Building something real. Brianna laughed despite herself. You're a crime boss asking to court me properly. That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Is it working? Unfortunately, yes. She stood on her toes, pressing a quick kiss to his cheek. Pick us up Friday night, 7 o'clock. And Taejun, wear something casual. We're going to a place that serves the best soul food in Brooklyn. Your territory I got to see. Now you see mine. His eyes lit up. I'd like that. Brianna watched him walk away, his stride confident even in her run-down neighborhood. She should be terrified, should be calling this off. Instead, she found herself already counting down the days to Friday. Her phone buzzed. Allison? Girl, you've been radio silent for 3 days. Please tell me the blind date wasn't a complete disaster. Brianna smiled, typing back. It was definitely something. I'll tell you everything over wine. You're not going to believe this story. That good or that bad? Honestly, I have no idea, but I think I'm about to find out. Friday arrived with a mix of anticipation and dread coiling in Brianna's stomach. She'd told Faith they were going to dinner with Taejun, and her daughter had been vibrating with excitement all day. Can I wear my fancy dress? The blue one Aunt Allison got me? Yes, baby. Brianna smoothed down her own outfit, a simple burgundy wrap dress that hugged her curves in all the right places. Nothing fancy, but it made her feel beautiful, confident. She needed that confidence tonight. The knock came at exactly 7 o'clock. Taejun stood in her doorway wearing dark jeans and a crisp white button-down, the sleeves rolled up to his elbows. His hair was slightly tousled, and the tattoo on his neck was fully visible. He looked devastating, and somehow more real than he had in his expensive suits. "You look beautiful," he said, his eyes tracking over her with undisguised appreciation. "So do you." Brianna felt heat rise to her cheeks. "I mean, you look good. Handsome. Not beautiful, that's—" He laughed, a genuine sound that transformed his entire face. "Thank you, I'll take beautiful as a compliment." "Tae-Jun?" Faith barreled into him, and he caught her with surprising ease, lifting her up. "Hello, little one. You look like a princess. Mama did my hair special, see?" Faith pointed to the elaborate braids Brianna had spent an hour perfecting. "It's very beautiful, like you." He set her down gently. "Are you ready to show me this famous soul food restaurant?" The drive to Clara's kitchen took them through the heart of Brooklyn, past brownstones and corner stores, murals and community gardens. Brianna watched Tae-Jun take it all in, his expression thoughtful. "This is where you grew up. 3 blocks from here. Same apartment from when I was Faith's age until I moved out at 18. She pointed to a building with fading red brick. "That's where my mom still lives. She works nights as a nurse. You'll meet her eventually if—" She trailed off, suddenly uncertain. "I'd like that." Tae-Jun's hand found hers in the back seat, squeezing gently. "Very much." Clara's kitchen was everything Lumiere wasn't. Loud, cramped, with mismatched furniture and walls covered in family photos. But the smell of fried chicken, collard greens and cornbread hit like a warm hug, and the energy was infectious. "Brianna!" Clara herself emerged from the kitchen, a woman in her 70s with silver hair and a smile that could light up a room. "And this must be little Faith. Baby, you've grown so much." "Hi, Miss Clara." Faith hugged her enthusiastically. Clara's eyes moved to Tae-Jun, and Brianna saw the assessment happening. This woman had known Brianna since birth, had fed her family through hard times, had been a surrogate grandmother. Her approval mattered. "And who is this handsome man?" "I'm Tae-Jun Kang." He extended his hand with perfect courtesy. "Thank you for having us, ma'am. Brianna speaks very highly of your cooking." "Ma'am, listen to those manners." Clara shook his hand, then pulled him into a hug that seemed to surprise him. "Any friend of Brianna's is family here. Now sit down, let Clara feed you properly." They were ushered to a corner booth, and soon the table was covered with plates. Fried chicken so crispy it shattered at the touch, macaroni and cheese that made Faith's eyes go wide, collard greens cooked with smoked turkey, candied yams, cornbread dripping with butter. Tae-Jun stared at the spread with something like wonder. "You've never had soul food?" Brianna asked, amused. "Never." He picked up a piece of chicken carefully, took a bite, and his eyes closed. "This is incredible." "Right?" Faith dove into her mac and cheese with enthusiasm. "Miss Clara is the best cook ever, better than Mama, but don't tell her I said that." "I heard that, baby girl." Brianna laughed, watching Tae-Jun work his way through each dish with genuine appreciation. They ate and talked, Faith chattering about school, Brianna sharing stories about the neighborhood. Tae-Jun listened more than he spoke, but Brianna could see him absorbing everything. The warmth, the sense of community, the way people stopped by their table to say hello, to hug her, to welcome the stranger she'd brought with her. "Your world is very different from mine," Tae-Jun said quietly, when Faith ran off to look at Clara's collection of old photos on the wall. "Is that a problem?" "No." He reached across the table, taking her hand. "It's beautiful. You're beautiful. The way people here care about each other, look out for each other, that's something I've never really had. What was your childhood like?" Tae-Jun's expression darkened. "Privileged but cold. My father loved me in his way, but he was preparing me to lead. That meant discipline, training, learning to be ruthless when necessary. My mother left when I was 10. She couldn't handle the life. G1 was the only real warmth I had. And when she died, I became what my father needed me to be. Harder, colder, better at the business." His thumb traced patterns on her palm. "Until 3 weeks ago, I thought that was enough, that I didn't need anything else. What changed?" He looked at her with such intensity that her breath caught. A woman walked into an expensive restaurant wearing a 6-year-old dress and honest eyes, and everything I thought I knew about my life stopped making sense. Brianna's heart hammered in her chest. "Tae-Jun!" Her phone buzzed insistently. Then again, and again. She pulled it out, frowning at the unknown number. "Hello? Is this Brianna Thompson?" A male voice, professional, urgent. "Yes, who is this?" "This is Detective Rivera, NYPD. I need you to listen carefully. In approximately 3 minutes, a team is going to enter the restaurant you're currently in. We have reason to believe Tae-Jun Kang is meeting with a known criminal associate there. I'm calling as a courtesy. Because our mutual friend Alison Martinez asked me to warn you to get your daughter out. Ice flooded Brianna's veins. What? 3 minutes, Miss Thompson. Get your daughter and leave through the back exit. Now. The call disconnected. Brianna looked up at Tae-Jun, whose expression had gone deadly serious. He'd heard. How many exits? His voice was calm, controlled, but she could see the calculation happening behind his eyes. 2. Front and back kitchen exit. Brianna's hands shook as she grabbed her purse. Faith, baby, come here right now. What's wrong? Faith appeared at her side, frightened by her tone. We need to go, sweetheart. It's okay, but we need to go now. Brianna lifted Faith into her arms, even though she was getting too big for it. Tae-Jun was already moving, his hand on her lower back, guiding them toward the kitchen. Clara looked up from the stove, taking in their expressions, and immediately opened the back door without questions. Go, baby. Whatever this is, you go. They burst into the alley just as shouts erupted from inside the restaurant. Tae-Jun's car was around the corner. He'd known somehow to park with an exit strategy. He got them inside, and the driver pulled away smoothly, calmly, as if they weren't fleeing a police raid. What's happening? Faith's voice was small, scared. Just a misunderstanding, baby. Everything's okay. Brianna held her daughter tight, her eyes meeting Tae-Jun's in the rearview mirror. He mouthed 2 words. I'm sorry. The drive to Brianna's apartment took 20 minutes. Faith had calmed down, distracted by the tablet Tae-Jun produced from somewhere. Once she was settled with headphones, Brianna turned to him. They were coming for you. Yes. Trevor Hayes must have tipped them off. He's escalating. Tae-Jun's jaw was tight. But they won't find anything. I wasn't conducting business tonight. This was just harassment, a way to make my life difficult. Is Allison involved in this somehow? Her brother is a detective, Rivera. He's one of the few honest cops in the city, which is why he warned you instead of using this as leverage. Tae-Jun looked at her steadily. But this is what I meant, Brianna. This is the reality of my world. Police raids, enemies making moves, having to always have an exit strategy. I know. Her voice was steady despite the fear still coursing through her. You warned me, and yet you're still here. Yeah. Brianna looked at Faith, innocent and absorbed in her cartoon. We're still here. At her apartment building, Tae-Jun walked them up. At the door, he crouched down to Faith's level. I'm sorry tonight got scary. It's okay. Mama says sometimes grown-up stuff happens. Faith looked at him seriously. Are you in trouble? No, little one, I'm fine. But I want you to know something. He glanced up at Brianna, then back to Faith. I will always make sure you and your mama are safe. Always. That's a promise. Okay. Faith hugged him suddenly, fiercely. You're nice, Tae-Jun. I'm glad mama likes you. Something broke in his expression. Surprise, tenderness, pain all mixed together. He hugged her back carefully. I'm glad she likes me too. After Faith was tucked into bed, Brianna walked Tae-Jun back to the door. In the hallway, he stopped, turning to face her. I should let you go, for your safety, for Faith's. I should walk away and make sure you're never touched by my world again. But you're not going to. It wasn't a question. No. His hand came up to cup her face, his touch gentle despite the rough calluses on his palm. I'm selfish. I want you too much. But Brianna, if you tell me to leave, I will. One word, and I disappear from your life forever. Brianna stood there in her dingy hallway, with this impossible man looking at her like she was something precious. She thought about the life she'd built. Safe, predictable, small. She thought about Faith, about the future she wanted for her daughter. And then she thought about how Tae-Jun had held Faith so carefully, how he'd looked at her like she hung the moon, how he'd been honest when lying would have been easier, how he'd never once made her feel less than, despite the vast gulf between their worlds. Don't go, she whispered. The kiss was inevitable, slow, deep, full of promise and danger in equal measure. His hand tangled in her hair, her fingers clutching his shirt, and for a moment the world narrowed to just this, just them. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Tae-Jun pressed his forehead to hers. I'll keep you safe, both of you, whatever it takes. I know. And surprisingly, impossibly, she did. He left with one final kiss, and Brianna leaned against her closed door, touching her lips, wondering what the hell she was doing. Her phone buzzed. Allison. Rivera called me. Are you okay? Do you need me to come over? Brianna typed back, I'm okay, we're okay, but Allison, I think I'm falling for him. The crime boss. Girl, are you insane? Probably. Does he treat you well? Does he treat Faith well? Better than anyone ever has. There was a pause, then I've got your back. But if he hurts you, Rivera knows people who can make bodies disappear, just saying. Despite everything, Brianna laughed. Noted. She checked on Faith one more time, her daughter sleeping peacefully, clutching her stuffed panda. Tomorrow there would be questions, concerns, maybe regrets. But tonight, Brianna allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, this impossible thing could work. Her phone lit up with a text from Tae-jun. Thank you for tonight, for trusting me, for not running. You're braver than you know. She smiled, typing back. Or crazier. The jury's still out. Either way, I'm grateful. Sleep well, Brianna. Dream of better things than police raids. I'll dream of fried chicken and a man who hugs my daughter like she matters. She does matter. You both do. More than anything. Brianna fell asleep with her phone clutched to her chest, hope and fear warring in her heart, and no idea which would win. 2 weeks passed in a strange rhythm. Dinners with Tae-jun, careful conversations about boundaries and safety, Faith growing more attached to the man who showed up at their door with books about animals, and patient answers to her endless questions. Brianna felt herself falling deeper, even as the rational part of her brain screamed warnings she couldn't quite heed. Then everything changed on a Tuesday morning. Brianna was halfway through her shift at Eddie's diner when her phone rang. Unknown number. Her stomach dropped. Unknown numbers never meant good things anymore. Hello? Miss Thompson. This is Riverside Elementary. There's been an incident. Faith is fine, but we need you to come immediately. The world tilted. What kind of incident? Just please come. Faith is with the principal. Brianna barely remembered the subway ride, the sprint from the station to the school. She burst through the doors to find Tae-jun already there, standing in the hallway with Jae-sung, both of them radiating barely controlled fury. What are you doing here? The words came out sharper than she intended. They called me. Tae-jun's expression was carved from stone. Faith's emergency contact list. You put my number on it last week, remember? She had. A moment of weakness or trust, or something she hadn't wanted to examine too closely. What happened? The principal emerged from her office. Mrs. Warren, a kind woman Brianna had met at parent-teacher conferences. Ms. Thompson, Mr. Kang, thank you for coming so quickly. Faith is fine, but she was very frightened. Frightened by what? Brianna's nails dug into her palms. A man approached her at morning recess, told her he had a message for her mother. He showed her a photograph. Mrs. Warren's expression was troubled. Of you leaving Mr. Kang's office building 2 weeks ago, he told Faith to tell you that Mr. Kang's enemies know exactly who you are. The floor seemed to drop out from under Brianna. Where is she? In my office. She's shaken but physically unharmed. The man left before security could detain him. Mrs. Warren looked between them. I've called the police. They're on their way. Brianna pushed past her, finding Faith curled up in a chair, her face streaked with tears. The sight broke something in Brianna's chest. Mama! Faith launched herself into Brianna's arms, sobbing. He was scary. He said bad people know where we live. He said they could hurt you. Shh, baby, I'm here, you're safe. Brianna held her daughter tight, rocking her, making promises she didn't know if she could keep. Tae-jun stood in the doorway, and Brianna saw something she'd never seen before. Raw, undiluted fear. Not for himself, but for them. I need to talk to Tae-jun for a minute, okay, baby? Mrs. Warren will stay with you. Brianna carefully untangled herself from Faith, who nodded reluctantly. In the hallway she whirled on him. You said she'd be safe. You promised. I know. His voice was hoarse. This is Trevor Hayes. He's escalating because I hit back after the warehouse. He's using you to get to me. My daughter. Brianna's voice cracked. He threatened my 8-year-old daughter, Tae-jun. I know. He reached for her, but she stepped back. The movement seemed to physically pain him. Brianna, I'm handling it. Hayes won't get near Faith again, I swear to you. How? How are you going to handle it? By starting a war. By putting my child in the crossfire. Tears streamed down Brianna's face, hot and angry. This is exactly what I was afraid of. What you warned me about. Let me protect you, both of you. I have safe houses, security, resources. You want me to uproot Faith's entire life. Take her from her school, her friends, everything she knows because of your world. Brianna shook her head, backing away. No, we're done. This is done. Brianna, please, were you in on it? The question exploded from her, too loud in the quiet hallway. The setup, the blind date. Did you arrange it knowing you'd drag us into this mess? What? No, I told you, Mrs. Park. Because this feels like a trap. Like you knew exactly what you were doing, getting close to someone vulnerable, someone with a child you could use as leverage. Stop. Tae-jun's voice cut through her spiral, sharp as broken glass. You don't believe that. You're scared and angry, and you have every right to be, but you don't believe I'd use Faith like that." He was right. Even terrified, even furious, Brianna knew he'd never deliberately put Faith in danger, but that didn't change the reality staring her in the face. "It doesn't matter what I believe. My daughter was threatened today because she knows you, because I let you into our lives." Brianna wiped at her tears furiously. "We're leaving, and you're going to stay away from us. No calls, no texts, nothing. Let Hayes think we mean nothing to you. Let us fade back into being nobody." "You're not nobody. Not to me." Taejun's composure was cracking, desperation bleeding through. "Don't do this, let me fix it." "You can't fix it. This is what your life is, Taejun. This is what it will always be. And I won't sacrifice Faith's safety for—" She broke off, unable to finish the sentence. "For what? For me? For us?" His eyes were bright with unshed tears. "Say it, Brianna. Tell me what we are." "We're a mistake." The words felt like swallowing glass. A beautiful, impossible mistake. Detective Rivera arrived then, breaking the moment. Brianna gave her statement mechanically, watching Taejun do the same, the space between them growing with every passing minute. When it was over, Taejun approached one last time. "At least let Jae-sung escort you home. Make sure you're not followed." Brianna wanted to refuse, but she had to think of Faith. "Fine, but then we're done. You understand?" He nodded once, a sharp, painful movement. "I understand." She collected Faith, who clung to her with trembling hands. In the car Taejun had sent, Faith whispered, "Is Taejun mad at me?" "No, baby. Never. He could never be mad at you." "Then why won't he ride with us?" Brianna closed her eyes against fresh tears. "Because sometimes grown-ups have to make hard choices to keep the people they love safe." "But I love Taejun." Faith's voice was so small. "Don't you love him too, Mama?" The question hung in the air, unanswered. At their apartment, Jae-sung did a thorough security check while Brianna packed. She was taking Faith to her mother's place upstate for a few days, getting distance, figuring out their next move. "Boss wanted you to have this." Jae-sung handed her a phone, new, expensive, with a single contact programmed in. "For emergencies only. If Hayes or anyone else approaches you, call that number immediately." Brianna took it wordlessly. "For what it's worth," Jae-sung said quietly. "I've worked for Taejun for 10 years. I've never seen him care about anyone the way he cares about you and your daughter. What he's done to Hayes' organization in the last 2 weeks, the risks he's taken to eliminate the threat, he's doing it all for you. Then he should have thought about the consequences before dragging us into this world." Jae-sung nodded, not arguing. "He's thinking about them now." After he left, Brianna sat in her apartment surrounded by half-packed bags, Faith sleeping fitfully in her room. She pulled out her regular phone, staring at the thread of messages from Taejun. Funny observations about the city, photos of Korean art he thought she'd like, goodnight texts that had become part of her routine. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, wanting to type something, anything. An apology for the accusation she hadn't meant. An explanation that she was terrified, not heartless. A confession that her daughter was right. She did love him, desperately, impossibly. Instead, she turned off the phone and finished packing. 3 days later, at her mother's house in Ulster County, Brianna was helping Faith with a puzzle when the emergency phone rang. Her heart stopped. She grabbed it with shaking hands. "Hello, Brianna, it's Jae-sung. Don't hang up." "What happened? Is Taejun—" "He's alive. Bert Hayes made a move tonight. Ambushed him outside a business meeting. Taejun took 2 bullets protecting a civilian who was in the wrong place at the wrong time." Jae-sung's voice was tight. "He's in surgery now at Mount Sinai. It's bad, Brianna. If you want to see him, you should come." The world tilted. "I can't. Faith, your mother can watch her. I'll send a car. He's asking for you. Even unconscious, even in surgery, he's saying your name." Brianna looked at Faith, peaceful in the safety they'd built here. Then she thought of Taejun bleeding, alone, calling for her. "I'll be there in 2 hours." 4 months later, Brianna stood in the kitchen of a brownstone in Park Slope, watching Taejun teach Faith how to make Korean dumplings. His movements were still careful, favoring his left side where the bullets had done the most damage, but his smile was genuine as Faith laughed at her misshapen creation. "It looks like a blob. All first dumplings look like blobs. Mine looked like disasters." He guided her hands patiently. "Try again." Brianna thought about that night at Mount Sinai, how she'd burst into his hospital room once he was out of surgery, how he'd looked at her with such naked relief, how she'd broken down, sobbing, apologizing for running, for doubting him. "You were right to run," he'd whispered, his voice hoarse. I never should have put you at risk. But I love you, you idiot. And you almost died. His smile had been weak, but real. Almost. But I didn't, because I had something worth surviving for. Trevor Hayes was gone now. Not dead, but buried so deep in legal troubles and organizational collapse that he'd never threaten anyone again. Tae-jun had been ruthlessly efficient, using legitimate business tactics and law enforcement partnerships to dismantle Hayes's empire without sparking a war that would endanger civilians. And he'd made other changes. Stepped back from the most dangerous aspects of the organization, delegated to trusted lieutenants, started transitioning the family businesses toward legitimate enterprises, a process that would take years, but one he'd committed to. For you, he'd said simply, and for Faith, I want to be someone she can be proud of. They'd moved slowly. Separate apartments, careful dates, therapy for all of them to process the trauma. But gradually, carefully, they'd built something real. Mama, look! Faith held up a dumpling that actually resembled what it was supposed to be. I did it! That's beautiful, baby. Brianna walked over, wrapping her arms around both of them. Tae-jun's hand came up to rest over hers, and Faith leaned into them both. Are we a family now? Faith asked, with the directness only children possessed. Tae-jun and Brianna exchanged a look over her head. He'd proposed last week, not with a grand gesture, but quietly in her apartment, with Faith asleep in the next room. I know it's complicated, he'd said. I know my past will always be part of our future, but I love you, Brianna Thompson. I love Faith. I want to build a life with you, whatever that looks like. Will you marry me? She'd said yes without hesitation. Yes, Brianna told Faith now, kissing the top of her head. We're a family. Good. Faith wriggled free, returning to her dumpling project. Because Tae-jun promised to take me to the zoo next week, and families do stuff like that. I did promise that. Tae-jun met Brianna's eyes, love and gratitude shining in his expression. And I always keep my promises. Later, after Faith was in bed, Brianna and Tae-jun sat on the couch in comfortable silence. He'd bought this brownstone, not the penthouse she'd feared, but a real home in a family neighborhood with a yard where Faith could play. Do you ever regret it? Tae-jun asked quietly. The blind date that wasn't really a blind date? The mess that followed? Brianna thought about that night at Lumiere, how terrified she'd been, how impossible everything had seemed, how much they'd overcome to get here. Were you in on it? She asked, echoing that terrible question from the hospital. You know I wasn't. I know. She leaned into him, feeling his arm come around her shoulders, but I think Mrs. Park and Allison might have been more coordinated than they let on. Tae-jun laughed softly. I've had my suspicions. Apparently meddling works across cultural boundaries. Apparently. Brianna tilted her face up and he kissed her gently. No regrets. Not one. Even the scary parts brought us here. Here is pretty good, he agreed. Through the window they could see the lights of Brooklyn spreading out toward Manhattan, two worlds that had seemed impossibly far apart, now intertwined in this small, perfect moment. Brianna's phone buzzed. A text from Allison. Heard through the grapevine that someone's getting married. Please tell me I'm invited, and that Rivera can bring his cuffs just in case. Brianna laughed, showing Tae-jun the message. He grinned. Tell her she's invited. But Rivera has to leave the cuffs at home. So I'm trying to go legitimate here. Trying being the operative word. Rome wasn't built in a day, but for you I'll build a whole empire of legitimacy. He kissed her forehead. One dumpling at a time. It wasn't perfect. There were still challenges ahead. Old associates who resented the changes. Faith's need for therapy to process the trauma. Brianna's lingering fears every time Tae-jun was late coming home. But they faced it together, building something stronger than either of them had been alone. Sometimes the best love stories started with elaborate setups and mistaken identities. Sometimes they survived danger and doubt and every logical reason to run. And sometimes, just sometimes, a waitress from Brooklyn and a Korean crime boss trying to be better could find their way to exactly where they needed to be, together.